Thursday, July 31. Can you keep a secret? Read Mark chapter 1, verses 40 to 45. What does this teach us about Jesus and how he related to the marginalized in society? Mark 1, beginning at verse 40. A man with leprosy came to him and begged him on his knees, "If you are willing, you can make me clean." Jesus was willing. He reached out his hand and touched the man. "I am willing," he said. "Be clean." Immediately the leprosy left him and he was cleansed. Jesus sent him away at once with a strong warning. "See that you don't tell this to anyone, but go, show yourself to the priest, and offer the sacrifices that Moses commanded for your cleansing as a testimony to them." Instead, he went out and began to talk freely, spreading the news. As a result, Jesus could no longer enter a town openly, but stayed outside in lonely places. Yet the people still came to him from everywhere. Leprosy, as described in this passage and throughout the Old Testament as well, did not refer only to what is known today as Hansen's disease, bona fide leprosy. The biblical terminology would be better translated as a dreaded skin disease, and could include other epidermic ailments as well. Hansen's disease may have come to the ancient Near East about the 3rd century BC. Hence, the leper referred to in this passage could well have had Hansen's disease, though we don't know for sure exactly what the man suffered from, only that it was bad. The leper places faith in Jesus that he can cleanse him. According to Leviticus 13, a leper was ritually unclean and had to avoid contact with others, as you read in Leviticus 13, verses 45 and 46. Anyone with such a defiling disease must wear torn clothes. Let their hair be unkempt, cover the lower part of their face, and cry out, "Unclean, unclean." As long as they have the disease, they remain unclean. They must live alone. They must live outside the camp. Jesus, however, is moved with compassion toward the man and touches him. We read in Mark 1:41, "Then Jesus, moved with compassion, stretched out his hand and touched him, and said to him, 'I am willing, be cleansed.'" This action should have defiled Jesus until the evening, when he would be required to bathe to become ritually pure again, as is instructed in Leviticus chapter 13, 14 and 15. But Mark is clear that Jesus' action of touching the sick man cleanses him of his leprosy. Thus, Jesus was not defiled by touching the man. Jesus sends the man to a priest with the instruction to offer the sacrifice Moses commanded for such cases in Leviticus chapter 14. Throughout the Gospel of Mark, Jesus stands as a defender and supporter of what Moses taught. As we read in Mark 7:10, "For Moses said, 'Honor your father and mother, and anyone who curses their father or mother is to be put to death.' And Mark 10, verses 3 and 4, "What did Moses command you?" he replied. They said, "Moses permitted a man to write a certificate of divorce and send her away." And Mark 12, verse 26, "Now about the dead rising, have you not read in the book of Moses, in the account of the burning bush, how God said to him, 'I am the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob?'" And Mark 12, verses 29 to 31. "The most important one," answered Jesus, "is this: 'Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. Love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your mind and with all your strength. The second is this: love your neighbor as yourself. There is no commandment greater than these." This view stands in sharp contrast to the religious leaders who, in the passages in Mark chapter 7, Mark 10, and Mark 12, are subverting the original intent of the teachings given through Moses. These details explain Jesus' command in Mark 1:44 to silence the man. If he were to tell of his cure by Jesus, it might prejudice the decision of the priest in bias against Jesus. But the cleansed leper does not seem to understand this, and in disobedience of Jesus' command, he spreads the news far and wide, making it impossible for Jesus to enter towns openly for his ministry. And so, to finish today, how can we be careful not to do things that could hamper the spread of the gospel, no matter how good our intentions? This lesson was read by Dr. Percy Harrold for Christian Services for the Blind. Sponsored by the Sabbath School Department and distributed through Hope Channel Australia, this podcast is also redistributed by Hope Channel Germany, Christian Record Services for the Blind. It is also available on SoundCloud and through multiple podcast distributors, including Apple iTunes. And you can listen and watch at the same time on YouTube. Remember, God is always faithful.